Hey everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I am the editorial director for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And I am thrilled to be here with you once again for a very special bonus episode where I am delving into one of my favorite labels in the game right now. I'm talking Kino Lorber Studio Classics. Just recently on the channel, I had the pleasure of delving into the March 2023 slate of titles, and now with a few more weeks under my belt, I got to watch a few more. Now I'm ready to tackle the April slate. And we have a really good one. I want to start off by saying, as this is a bonus episode, I'm not going to be covering every single Studio Classics title that was released in April, because we've already covered a lot of the main ones on our main show. So we've already discussed like Serpico on 4K, 12 Angry Men on 4K, a Steve McQueen title or two. I'll link that in the description, but this is mainly for me to kind of fill in the gaps of what we haven't already covered on the main show and just kind of give you a lay of the land. So I have a nice stack of movies here, and I'm just going to kind of give you my general impressions, a little overview, and just try to guide you towards the gems in here. So I'm going to go in alphabetical order. And I'm just going to jump right in here. I will preface this by saying most of this is going to be from my head, so if I stumble a little bit, give me a little leeway. I have some notes here that I'm going to refer to, but mainly going from memory. So I'm just going to start right here and say I'm starting with The Big Bus, which is an interesting one. It's from 1976. And what I find interesting about this is this came about 4 years before Airplane. But this is like Airplane before Airplane. It's a send-up of disaster movies. And before I kind of delve into exactly what the plot is a little deeper, as Mike and I like to say on the main show, if you like these slipcovers, make sure to get them early, because you never know when they're going to sell out, how popular they're going to be, but you don't want to miss out if you're a fan of slipcovers. So The Big Bus, it starts off with a patently ridiculous premise of there's a transportation company that's like trying to get on the cutting edge of transportation technology. They are building a nuclear powered bus that can, I believe, get them from New York to Denver nonstop. At the beginning, there's kind of like some sabotage and everything that kicks off this chain of events where, of course, there is one driver who they have to bring on board, who is like the maverick, who will be able to get this maiden launch off the ground and transport them across country, who has like some baggage and all this stuff. But then what this mainly is a reason to get all of these funny performers onto one bus and just kind of ridiculous situations on this bus that's careening throughout the country at like breakneck speeds. And it's ridiculous, but it's pretty funny, but there are a lot of jokes that have not aged as well. If you kind of like the spoof comedy genre, I think this is a really interesting early prototype of this that would kind of be more finessed whenever you would get to Airplane. There's a lot of good jokes in here. There's a lot of good performers. Stockard Channing is a standout. She plays more of a straight woman to Joseph Bologna's kind of maverick driver. And then you have like Ruth Gordon and Larry Hagman, Ned Beatty, Sally Kellerman. There's a lot of really good people populated throughout this bus of colorful characters. One of my favorite recurring gags, even though it's not exactly PC all the time, but there's a lounge singer who is like performing on one of the levels of the bus, who no one's paying him any attention, but he just like keeps making kind of inappropriate remarks and playing inappropriate music, and it's hilarious, but like I said, not very PC, but it's one of my favorite recurring gags. Otherwise, it's hit and miss when it comes to the comedy, but overall, if you like spoof movies, I would recommend it, but just, it's not the best of the genre, I'll say that. This new Blu-ray comes from a new 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative, and I do really like how this looks. This is from their Paramount deal, everything looked pretty clear. I didn't see a lot of like major dirt, debris, scratches, or anything like that. It's been cleaned up really well. The sound is in pretty good shape. I didn't notice a lot of humming or anything like that. And this does come with an audio commentary track from film historians Howard S. Berger and Nathaniel Thompson. So nothing too deep into special features, but as you can rely on usually with Kino Lorber, that you get a new commentary track, which kind of puts things into perspective. So the big bust, if you like spoof movies, check it out, but expectations should be in check that it's not one of the best. My next title is the man, the myth, Burt Reynolds in Heat. Not Michael Mann's Heat. That would be about a decade after this. This is Burt Reynolds, which, once again, slipcover. This I found... it got me at the beginning because I didn't read what this was about. I just kind of dove into this. At the very beginning, you kind of see Burt acting like a jerk, getting his ass beaten by like a guy in like a barroom confrontation. I was like, oh, this is going to be kind of a different spin on kind of the tough macho Burt Reynolds persona. Let's see where we go with this. But then, of course, it is revealed that this is Burt Reynolds' character on a job. He is like taking the fall for this guy to impress a girl, and you kind of come to learn that this is a character who's like kind of down on his luck. He's like really tough, but he's like pretty much will do anything for money because he's like has like gambling debts and all that kind of stuff. But you do also learn that he is a character who is very loyal. He likes to help out his friends, and he does get really attached to one of the clients who kind of like hires him to teach him how to be a tough guy, basically. And this is just basically Burt Reynolds trying to make his life right, trying to kind of get out of this hole that he's found himself in. But in the midst of this, he has a woman that he's kind of friendly with, who gets herself into an altercation with like a mob boss's son, and it kind of puts him like on the other side of like at odds with a mobster's like forces. So it's Burt Reynolds versus like mobster forces because people are assholes and can't keep their hands to themselves. But Burt Reynolds is great in this. He of course exudes that tough charm, but then he also has moments where he can be vulnerable, and there's some really like interesting gentle narrative beats, which I kind of appreciated for the normal Burt Reynolds type of narrative. If you're a fan of Burt's, this is a pretty fun one. It's not like a classic by any means, but Heat is pretty decent if you're looking just kind of for your well done Burt Reynolds kind of gentle action movies. So I enjoyed this. The transfer is not noted from being a new master, so it's kind of a dated master, but it's actually in pretty good shape. This is from their Lionsgate deal. And the source seems to be in pretty solid shape. I didn't notice a lot of like damage or anything like that. There's some softness to certain shots. The audio seems fine. And there is a audio commentary track, and then there's an alternate ending and some trailers. So if you're a fan of Burt Reynolds, I put together a pretty good release. I don't really have major issues with the AV quality, so pick it up if you're a fan of his. This next one is a vintage movie musical from 1937. It's not strictly what I would say like non-stop musical. It's just kind of sporadic musical numbers. This is High, Wide, and Handsome with Irene Dunne, who I really like in this movie. She was in a movie called When Tomorrow Comes that I covered on the channel several months ago. So this is basically the story of, at the beginning, there's like some snake oil salesman, as for an easy shorthand, who gets themselves kind of like stuck in this town and is taken in by Irene Dunne's family, and this kind of leads to a romance between like her and one of the salesmen or whatever. But this all kind of feeds into a plot of kind of like trying to strike it rich at oil pipeline, and there's a lot of weird elements within there. So there's like circus performers, and you get to see like elephants and clowns and all this stuff, trying to it's basically misfits against like the greedy like town oil baron who's trying to kind of push out the probably rightful owners of this potential pipeline to kind of get all the power away from them and like kind of screw them over on this bounty of like oil money that they can kind of come into. Overall, it's a pretty decent musical comedy dramedy, I would say. Irene Dunn is the standout for me. This also has Randolph Scott, who he's known a lot for his westerns. He's kind of not as like heroic and noble as a lot of his westerns I've seen. This is based on an Oscar and Hammerstein's work. Like it's partially written by them. So if you're a fan of them, this isn't like a lot of their work, but overall, I would say overall this is worth a watch. It's just not. It's not my favorite of what I'm talking about today. There's a lot of interesting ideas within here. I just don't think it kind of pulls them all together in a really cohesive manner. It just kind of seems a little all over the place, unfocused, and just kind of scattershot in a way that doesn't really help like kind of pull it together as like an essential film. But this is given a new HD master from a 4K scan conducted by Universal Pictures. Even with that, this is a film from 1937. There is still some like density fluctuation, some flicker here and there. Still some specs that remain. It's not a perfect transfer, but it looks like a lot better. Like you can tell it's been cleaned up, but it's not like a perfect like 10 out of 10 transfer, I would say. Also, the music can sound a little like a pitchy or like kind of like a little brash in its upper registers, but overall the audio is also pretty decent as well. But this comes with an audio commentary from film historian Eddie Von Mueller and some trailers. If you're a fan of Irene Dunn or kind of unconventional movie musicals, I would say check this out, but with a little hesitation. Moving to one of my actually favorites of this lot. This is a screwball comedy called Lady in a Jam, with, once again, Irene Dunn. Back-to-back Dunn. So I really like this one quite a bit. This is about a woman. She's kind of like a high society woman who you learn does kind of have more of a lower class background. She has kind of worked herself up to like having riches, but she's kind of gotten to a delusional state where she doesn't realize she is spending her fortune at a rate that is like unsustainable, and then she's kind of oblivious to kind of all the bills and stuff she owns. So at the very beginning of the movie, a doctor is hired to kind of follow her around and kind of like track what is actually up with her, if she is like grounded in reality in any kind of sense. But what you learn, she's not really. She's just kind of she feels indignant a lot whenever she is confronted with the idea that she might be running out of money and stuff, until she eventually does like go bankrupt and like has all of her possessions sold off. And it's like Dunn plays it very amusingly. She's like, the way she plays her indignation is very funny, and she is the reason this movie works as well as it does. But then the second half of this movie is her going back to her roots and like trying to potentially like once again oddly kind of tap into like a oil / gold mine type. She's searching for gold on this kind of her old family's land. But it kind of turns into like an unconventional romance between them, like this beleaguered doctor who is like who wants to stay professional but is also kind of overtaken by the charm of this zany lady. And it's a really amusing screwball comedy. Like I said, Dunn really does a nice job here. There's not like a ton of complexity to it. It's just a really well done zany comedy of just like a lot of witticisms and exchanges that are just like rapid fire. I wouldn't say it's like up to the level of something like Bringing a Baby or something, but as like more of an under the radar screwball comedy, definitely a good one I really appreciated. This one is not noted as coming from a new master, but I do think it's overall a very solid transfer. I didn't notice a lot of like flicker or anything. There is some nicks and scratches here and there, but it's not overwhelming. The audio sounds pretty good, and this does come with an audio commentary track and a trailer. So if you like screwball comedies, definitely check this one out. It's only 78 minutes, so it goes along at a really great pace, so you don't feel like you've wasted your time. Next one is a newer movie. This is from 2002, and this is Man on the Train, and this is a French movie. I think this might be my only foreign language movie, non-English language movie today, so got this here, no interior artwork. So this is a very kind of unique movie where it's about a bank robber who kind of comes into this sleepy French town, who is planning on robbing the bank, but whenever he arrives, the bank is not open. He kind of he comes across a kind of a gentleman who offers to house him for a couple days and stuff until he can he doesn't tell him that he's there to rob a bank, but he offers to put him up at his house for a few days. And what you come to learn is he has kind of like a gentle, kind of boring life, but through the course of this film, these two men kind of start to idealize each other's life, and like this gentleman starts to he kind of figures out what he's there to do. Like he figures out that he's there to commit a crime and stuff, and he finds this kind of be like a kind of exciting notion. He's had such a boring life, and he's just like, what it would be to kind of rob a bank and do that and everything. But then while he is feeling this way, the bank robber starts kind of reminiscing about what could have been, and like wishing that he could have the life of this gentle life that he's just kind of never had access to, or never allowed himself to give himself access to that. So it's kind of this interesting drama where each man is like kind of envious of what the other has, and just trying to figure out what path each of them are going to land on as you reach the end of the movie. Is one of them going to decide to give up the life of crime? Is the other one going to take up a life of crime? It's very complex. I don't really like the ending necessarily. It's like kind of a little ambiguous, and which I'm not against ambiguity, but it's not completely to my liking, but I think it still works out really well. I think this is really good. It's like a character piece of like two men who are kind of like uncertain about their place in their lives, but I really like their core dynamic, and overall it's a really solid movie. This is not noted from coming from a new master, so this is a dated master, and it doesn't look the best, I would say, but for an early 2000s movie, it does the job. And it has a very cool color palette. I didn't notice a lot of damage, thankfully, but it's just kind of a little softer than I'm used to. It's not a lot of like crisp details, and like there's some like a little bit of black crush here and there. The audio's fine. You get the French audio with optional English subtitles. There are no special features anywhere, so that's unique for a Kino title, but worth a shot if you like French cinema. But yeah, it's pretty decent. I like it as a good character study. This next movie I wasn't a big fan of. This is Mississippi Gambler with Tyrone Power. So this is the tale of a gentleman who kind of meets kind of like a mentor who kind of gets him on a path towards being like a professional gambler who's like can open up like a riverboat casino and all that type of stuff. And this is kind of goes along coincides with this young guy played by Tyrone Power meeting a brother and sister who right off the bat, the sister has a disdain for this young man, but you can kind of tell that there is kind of they're setting it up to have like an unlikely romance near the end. And this is kind of just like a typical melodrama where it's just like goes over a series of years where there's like all this drama on the like regarding the brother being kind of a degenerate gambler and gambling away all the family money, and people who are in love marrying other people instead of being with the one that they actually do really want to be with, and all kinds of melodrama. It didn't completely work for me. I kind of found it a little bit dull and overly, like, I wasn't engaged in the like core romance. So this co-stars Piper Laurie, who people might know from Carrie, and Julie Adams from The Creature from the Black Lagoon. And they're good. I like all the performances. It's just the narrative's kind of dull overall for me. It didn't really do a lot for me. But this comes from a new 2K master. I would say that there is still some nicks here and there. I did find the audio to be a little bit lacking. It was a little bit thin. I wish it could have been a little bit more robust and less like kind of just like a little bit distorted even a little bit. This does come with an audio commentary and some trailers. Like I said, this might be one of my least favorites of this group, so wouldn't really recommend it, but if you're a fan of the actors, it's a good release. My next one, I was interested because I'm been interested in checking out more Jean Seberg movies, this stars her, and this is Moment to Moment, which is kind of a Hitchcockian type movie where it's about a woman who is married, and I believe they live in France, and she has a husband who kind of goes out of town for an extended period of time, and she meets like an American soldier who she starts up a romance with a little bit, but then she decides like no, she loves her husband and she doesn't want to do anything. But while she is out with this young man, one night he gets shot, and in a panic she kind of like hides his body, and then it's kind of like the rest of the movie is like wondering like how she's going to get out of this potential situation if this man is discovered. And I won't kind of ruin some of the twists and turns of this, but like it's like her collaborating with her friend who also knows that she committed this crime. It's pretty decent overall. What really kind of sunk it a little bit for me was just the stupidity of some of the character choices. Like the character going back to like check out the crime scene after she had left it, and it's just like, why would you do that? That is ridiculous. So it's just those kind of things that kind of drive you crazy. But what I really find intriguing about this movie is the dynamic between this woman and her husband, who, like, as the movie goes along, like, you wonder what exactly he knows about what she's done and how he ends up responding to it. It can get pretty morally interesting. This comes from a 2K master. It looks really good. Still some remaining nicks and scratches. I know I'm saying this for most of these. Like, these are not cleaned up completely, but they look a lot better than they would otherwise. But overall, really pretty solid transfer. I didn't have any problems with the audio, and this does come with an audio commentary track, and then it comes with a bonus featurette with composer Henry Mancini, who people might know best from the Pink Panther series. Kind of like just a piece on him and like the music he did for this movie, which was quite good. My next movie is Rio, which with Basil Rathbone, Victor McLaglen, and Sigrid Guri, Robert Cummings. Not like an A+ style star cast, except for Basil Rathbone. A lot of people know him from like Adventures of Robin Hood and a bunch of stuff. But this is a story about a kind of a scoundrel who gets involved with this woman here, and their kind of romance where like she knows that he's not like completely on the level, but she loves him, and but he has to go away to prison for a little while. But they are all kind of like him, his wife who's on the outside, and his butler are all kind of planning his prison escape. But while he is in jail, she meets another man and actually falls in love with a good man. And while this is happening, the original husband, the scoundrel, breaks out and like kind of wants to see what his wife's been up to while he's been in jail, and kind of like that kind of simple jealousy narrative, and like trying to figure out who you should be with, and love, melodrama, all that good stuff. It's only 77 minutes, so it's a very spry narrative. I didn't completely love it. I think it was fine, but it's definitely not one of my favorites of this batch of titles. But overall, if you're a Basil Rathbone fan, he's like kind of deliciously like malicious. But if you're not completely in love with like noirish melodrama mystery kind of films, it's not one of the best. It's fine, but doesn't really stand out in any particular way for me, at least. This next one is kind of bizarre. This is the pre-code comedy Search for Beauty from 1934. And so this one actually kind of reminded me of a movie I covered for Warner Archive called Athena, because that one also was similarly bizarre, because it is really focused on fitness and the human form and all that kind of stuff. So this is, the basic plot is there's like a newspaper, like a magazine where like there's an unconventional love between like a bodybuilder, gymnast, and like a swimmer played by Ida Lupino, which actually I think she was like very young whenever she filmed this. I think they said that this film was released like maybe around her 16th birthday, so that's kind of a little bit uncomfortable that she's having a relationship with a grown man in this movie, but that's what the movie is. I don't think she's like supposed to be a child within the movie, just when she was filming. But anyway, so these two figures are kind of focused on like fitness and like wanting to promote health out into like the world, unbeknownst to them that the people who are kind of taking over their magazine wants to turn it into a skin rag. So something a little more prurient and like sexy and stuff. That is not what they have in mind. So it's kind of like this push and pull between like these people who are like in it for the fitness and for the health, and those who are in it just for the skin. And since this is pre-code, you didn't have a lot of like the restrictions that you would later get. So you get to, in like one of the shower scenes, you get to see some dudes' booties. If you're into that, you get to see some old school 1930s booties just walking around in the shower. But that's pretty much the only thing that's really noteworthy outside of just the freakish obsession with wanting to promote fitness and just like kind of propelling that narrative forward. But other than that kind of oddball oddity, this is just fine. Once again, 78 minutes, so it doesn't take up a lot of your time, but I wouldn't say, besides just it being like in the pre-code era, this didn't really stand out a lot for me. It's fine, but it just mostly some of these movies that focused so much on health and wellness, it's just fascinating. This next movie, this is basically The Thing, but made for TV. This is Terminal Invasion, which is Sean S. Cunningham, who directed the original Friday the 13th. He made this movie with Bruce Campbell in 2002, where Bruce is playing a prisoner who's being kind of transferred to a different prison, and I believe they are in Alaska or Canada, one of those. A snowy, blizzardy place. It's a snowy, blizzardy night, and everyone gets stuck in this bus depot, and then you start learning that there are kind of like alien creatures among them, and like not everyone who like appears to be human is actually human. So it's a series of Bruce Campbell kind of being kind of this rogue hero, trying to figure out, like, survive and figure out who is an alien, who is human, who can be trusted, and just how he's going to get himself out of there, even like apart from the aliens, to free himself from his incarceration. So this was made for the Sci-Fi Channel back in the early 2000s, but it is not like, I would say, like family friendly. There's like some language and stuff, and like some pretty goopy special effects, like whenever with the aliens being like shot and all that kind of stuff. It's a perfectly fine made-for-television movie. I wouldn't say it's anything spectacular. Like I said, it's kind of derivative of The Thing, but not as good. But if you like kind of like semi-cheesy sci-fi movies, this one, I had fun with it, even though I know it's not great. I love Bruce Campbell, so like he really lifted this up. The rest of the cast is just basically not anyone particularly notable, and they just kind of blend in. But if you like Bruce Campbell, or if you like sci-fi made-for-TV movies, it's pretty good. This comes from a dated master, but it seems to be in good shape. Nothing too much in the way of damage or anything like that. The audio is solid. There is a director commentary from Sean S. Cunningham and executive producer Chuck Simon. There's also an alien costume test, so you can kind of see like what they were kind of testing, but like the aliens were going to look like before you see them on screen. So this, if you're in the audience for this, so if you're interested in this, pick it up. It's a pretty good release. If you don't like made-for-TV sci-fi movies, just keep on moving. Two more. Next one is a kind of unconventional Western. This is They Came to Cordura. This is set in the early part of the 20th century. I believe it's like set against the backdrop of the fight against Pancho Villa. And what I really like about this particular Western is that it kind of wrestles with the idea of heroicism and like cowardice and how that fits into kind of the Western mythos. So Gary Cooper plays a man who is transporting a group of 5 soldiers to receive kind of their medal of like commendation. These are all people who have like shown valor in the field. But despite this, since the war is going on, this is kind of seen as kind of a mission that is not looked upon favorably. It's just, and you come to learn that the Gary Cooper character, he is actually someone who has shown cowardice in the past, and he's kind of trying to understand what these men have like inside them that made them show up at a time when like their fellow soldiers needed them, whereas whenever he was put in a particular bind, he kind of wilted under pressure. But what you find throughout this journey is that these 5 men are not completely like saints by any means, and they start, as this grueling journey continues on, you realize that they kind of start to break down, and you, like Cooper himself, even if he starts to wonder if they are worthy of such like valor, he respects that they were like even up for this in the first place. And a lot of this comes down also with picking up the character of Rita Hayworth, and like a lot of like several of the soldiers like want to, of course, do some terrible stuff to her, because women do not fare well in Westerns. But the way this journey plays out, it seems unfulfilled. There's a lot of promise in this premise, but it doesn't completely wrap everything together in like a very cohesive way, which I kind of go into in the introduction, which is on here, from film historian Bertrand Tavernier. This is one of the it's interesting because it's a pretty long introduction that you should watch after you've seen the movie. It's probably about like 20 minutes long, but there's not a commentary track for this. There's the introduction, and Bertrand kind of goes into kind of why this isn't a completely like fulfilling movie, why it doesn't fulfill its promise. But there's a lot of stuff in here that there is to like. It's just like when you reach the end, you feel there should be a little bit more to it. But overall, if you like Westerns, it's pretty good. It's just not completely there. Like, this has Gary Cooper, Rita Hayworth, as I already said, and it also has Van Heflin and Tab Hunter, and a slew of other people. The original Darren from Bewitched. So yeah, it's a pretty good Western. And then my final film is The Truth About Spring, which this is will probably be controversial if anyone knows anything about this movie, but I quite enjoyed this, considering I read that several of the cast members did not like this movie. I think it was fine. This has Hayley Mills and John Mills, and then James MacArthur. And this kind of fits into the old school Disney adventure aesthetic. This is a young girl, an 18-year-old girl, and her dad. They've kind of just like sailed the seven seas all of her life. She's kind of been sheltered from the world at large in regards to like men and everything, but she's just kind of like learned how to like live on the seas and just really rough it with her dad, until one day they take on like a guy, like a wealthy gentleman who comes on board, who wants to like do like some like fishing and adventuring and stuff, but he gets more than he bargained for when it kind of gets into like a pirate battle with some dueling vessels, and there's like a search for treasure. And then throughout this, young Hayley Mills, who plays Spring, The Truth About Spring, she kind of starts to discover a little bit more of the femininity that she kind of hasn't been taught, not growing up with a proper mom, just like kind of growing up with her dad. So it's just like her like starting to have feelings for this new guy, and how like their relationship develops, and her wanting to push against that but also like embrace it because she's conflicted in her feelings. It's like a coming of age adventure. I don't know, it was fun. I didn't like have super high hopes for it, but it like exceeded my expectations. It's kind of basic, but if you like kind of like seafaring adventures with like treasure hunting and like some lighthearted humor and all that kind of stuff, overall, Truth About Spring, I liked it. So even if some of the actors in it didn't like it, I liked it all these years later. But this is noted as coming from a dated master as well. This is not a new master, but I think this looks really solid. The like island photography looks really nice. There's some like softness here and there, some nicks and scratches, yes, but overall it looks really good. This comes with an audio commentary from screenwriter Gary Girani, also a film historian, and some trailers. So if you like kind of like the island adventure-y, like Treasure Island-y type stuff, Truth About Spring, I enjoyed it. Like I said, many may not share that opinion, but I did. So these are all the titles that I covered today, and there's some good stuff in here. Like I said, make sure to check it out. Kino is always putting out some really great stuff. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of it. Let me know what you think of the structure. Make sure to share this with anyone you think might like any of these films. There's a lot of variety within here, so make sure to share it around. Subscribe to the channel. We are always doing like unboxings, bonus episodes, and just our main episodes of the Video Attic, where we discuss brand new releases every single week with my colleague Michael Vaughn. It is just like this, but me having someone to bounce off of, and it's probably a little bit more humorous, but did my best here. But I appreciate you watching. I hope I'll probably be putting out something again soon, so keep an eye out. But until next time, enjoy these movies.